Ms. Nipa Bhuptani. She has over 25 years of experience in working with individuals on the autism spectrum disorder and other developmental disabilities. In fact, in the UAE, her name is synonym with autism services and support. She has a master's in special and inclusive education and is a board certified assistant behavioral analyst. She is also the regional associate for the Competent Learner Model, CLM, for Middle East and India, and a supervising CLM coach for all CLM services in the UAE and Italy. In this role, she provides coaching to individuals who are training to become certified CLM instructors. Nipa ji is the founding director of Applied and Behavioral Training Institute, Dubai, a social enterprise for training and coaching parents and caregivers of persons with developmental disorders. She is very keen to implement CLM at schools, preschools, homes, and at centers for special needs so as to support inclusion efforts in the Middle East, Asia, and Europe. In 2016, Nipa ji was invited as a panel speaker at the United Nations World Autism Awareness Day, a proud moment, where she shared her experience with autism in the Middle East region. She is also the founder of the Autism Support Network Abu Dhabi. With her vast experience in the field, Nipa ji has designed and overseen numerous programs for students with special needs. Excuse me, in UAE, India, and Italy. It is her personal mission to share her knowledge with all stakeholders, and hence she utilizes her YouTube channels and her blog to communicate with larger audience. Nipa ji, a warm welcome on behalf of all those present here. We request you to please share your knowledge with us. Nipa ji.
You're on mute, Nipa ji.
Thank you so much, Kusumji. That was very, very kind words. Very generous of you.
We're looking forward to you.
Thank you so much. Yes, it's a pleasure to be here. It is such a special opportunity to be here today. I am really, really thankful to Prerana, to the executive team, to Mohanji, and everyone who worked so hard to bring this event together. And big congratulations on your 10th anniversary. All of you together have done some fabulous work for the community in UAE. And now, as Mohanji said, that now you're spreading your wings through virtual platform to people outside of UAE also. So big congratulations to you for that. Would you like me to begin now, Mohanji?
Yeah, please, Ji. Please go ahead and you can share the screen with the presentation.
Sure. When I share the screen, I'm unable to see.
Share screen. You have to press on the icon called share screen.
Yeah, that's fine. But I'm not able to then see any of the participants. Okay,
No,
they've come. Yeah, but that's okay now. Yeah.
You can go to the full view presentation.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So firstly, thank you for everybody who's listening, everybody who is here. I know this is a Saturday afternoon and you have taken this time out, so this must have value for you. And I'm going to try my best to be able to share my experiences with you, and hoping that I can learn from you, and you can take away a few tidbits from what I have to say today. Okay. I'm going to talk about parenting today because I have, Prerana being a parent organization, most of our listeners today are parents. Whether they are parents of children with special needs or not, they're still parents. So I think what I'm going to say today applies to everyone. I'm going to talk about acceptance and commitment therapy, which is a new term which many of you may not even heard yet, or if you have, there's not a lot of talk about it yet, but it's basically a research based to value our lives and how to make decisions that are based on what we care about most. It's a combination of the Eastern philosophy of meditation and being in the present moment, along with behavior analysis, which helps you take those steps towards where you want to be and what you want to do in life that matters to you most. So it's a short talk today, and I'm going to try and scratch the surface. Hopefully this will be useful to you. Okay, so the first thing I wanted to say here, just a second, is that we wish that our children would have come with an instructional manual. Just 1 second, I'm missing a slide. Can I just pop out for a minute? I'm sorry about that. It's gone. Okay. Right. Okay. So when we decide to have a child, it's a momentous decision, right? It's something that we are going to be with for the rest of our lives. It is going to be the joy of our life. It is going to be something that we want, we treasure, and we cherish. But when we make that decision, we also decide to let our heart walk around the world out of our body for the rest of our lives, right? That's what we do. When we have a child, we are letting our heart out in the world. And constantly, every day, every moment, our heart is throbbing outside, right? And that brings about so much joy, but also brings about so much anxiety, so much stress, so many things to think of all the time, every time, and so many decisions to make. When we had our children, we didn't know what to do. We wished they came with an instructional manual, but they didn't, right? And so hopefully some instruction, some things that we learn from each other will be of help. That is my aim today, right? So as we move on, I wanted to ask parents, or I want you to think about how you're feeling as a parent lately. With the situation that is around us right now, with the possible difficulties that you might have faced, even with or without COVID-19. How are you feeling? Has it been stressful? Have your days recently been filled with anxiety about the future, about tomorrow, about the distant future for yourself, for your family, for your children? As children are not going to school, has it been very chaotic at home on a day-to-day basis? Some of you are working from home and the children are at home. Has it been difficult, right? At some level, have you found it more relaxing also? That you don't have to get up in the morning and rush the children off to work, and there is no pressure of time, of social interaction, of going out. So at some level, have you felt relaxed also? If you take a moment to think about that, right now, I wanted to share with you what I have felt. I have been very anxious. We stopped working since the 1st of March. It has been a very anxious time. Don't know what's going to happen. In the beginning, we thought it was a short while, lots of planning. And then every time a plan changed and every time everything changed, so the plans never worked. So it's been very difficult. The change has been hard to work with, right? I also want to share that if you are feeling anxious and worried and nervous and vulnerable at this point of time, you're not alone, right? We're all feeling that. We have all been there. We have all been feeling that way recently. So it's okay, right? Maybe we're experiencing different things at different times, but we are all in this at this time together, right? I also want you now to think about, in the near or the distant future, of any darker moment of yourself as a parent. Something that may have happened during your parenting that you're not proud of. Something that you don't think you can share with anyone because you don't think you did the right thing, or you're just not happy with what happened, right? Just take a few seconds and think of that experience, and think about how that feels. Take yourself there. Take yourself in that moment. See it if you can. Feel it if you can. What is it that comes up? Can you label the feeling that comes up? Is your heart beating faster? Are you feeling heavier, more closed in, more tighter? If that's what you're feeling, the one thing I want to let you know is, again, you're not alone, right? We have all been there as a parent. Each and every one of us as a parent, none of us are an expert. We didn't know what to do, and we have all been there, right? We all have moments where we have had experiences in our parenting which we're not willing to share, which we feel if we share, we will be judged. We will be seen as a bad parent. We will be brought to shame, blame, anger, vulnerable. All of these things, words will come up when we think about that experience. But it's okay. We've all been there. And what do we do usually? When that happens, we try and hide it. We bury it inside. We put it somewhere where we think it will never come back, or at least nobody else should see it, right? We hide it away from everybody else. Sometimes we even hide it from ourselves, right? And what happens is, when we hide these feelings, when we hide these experiences, or hide what is showing up from others and from ourselves, we end up feeling alone. So one thing I want you to know is that you're not the only person who has these feelings. If right now if we had another 4 hours and I asked every 55 or 60 of you to share that moment, we will all have the same feelings that come up to share. So when you feel like that, remember that you're not alone in this. You're not, every parent has been through that experience and feels the same way, right? We're going to look deeper into a perspective called acceptance and commitment therapy. We call, in short, it's called ACT, right? We call it ACT. ACT-based perspective is basically telling us how you approach your thoughts and feelings in the context of your relationship with your child. So when we're looking at ACT-based parenting, you're looking at how our thoughts and feelings are impacting the relationship with our children, right? And how that impact is happening is the key ingredient of effective parenting, right? So if we let our negative, hard, tough, heavy thoughts and feelings impact how we interact with our children, it's going to affect our parenting, right? And it's easy to say, it's not easy to do. To remove that out of our day-to-day interaction is hard. And this is what ACT helps us do. It helps us learn how to separate what we are thinking and feeling from how we are acting, right? So I would like to share my story here. Before that, also, I was working with children on the autism spectrum, and because you work with children, we always work with families. I have worked with numerous parents in all these years, and until recent years, I've been training parents, right? Training parents into the use and the implementation of behavioral principles. What to do when your child does this, how to make him learn this, how to reduce these undesirable behaviors. And there's the science and there are strategies and we teach them. And when we tell the parents, when you go home, now you've done this course, go and apply them, right? These are the solutions. Don't pay attention to them when they are engaging in undesirable behaviors. Don't focus on the negative. Don't make sure you're looking out for the positive. Wait when something good happens and make sure you catch the good and really appreciate what your child is doing. This is what we teach. These are the solutions we give to our parents that come to train with us. And I'm sure all of you have done some courses or attended some workshops where you have heard this also. Do these solutions work for you? Have you tried them? Have they worked for you? I feel most of you are going to say, not always. They don't work for me. I remember I worked very hard, but they don't always work for me. So what happens? What happens when you are applying that solution that you have been taught? Say, if, for example, you're outside in the shopping mall and your child wants to buy something or wants to do something that you don't want him to, and so he ends up having a big meltdown. And you have been taught to ignore all the undesirable behaviors. Don't give in and make sure you follow the rules and everything. And it's there. You have to do all of that. You have learned it. But what happens at that time? What happens is you start looking around and there are people there, and you suddenly feel like they're judging you for being a bad parent. How cruel are you? He just wants one balloon. Why won't you buy it for him? Or maybe you've been a bad parent and you haven't taught your child to follow anything and to behave himself. So all these judgments come up, maybe from other people that are around you, or maybe from within your mind. Your mind starts telling you things, right? You're being a bad parent, you're being too strict, you're being too lenient, you're being too easy, you're being too hard, you are not doing what you're told, you have no control over your child. All these thoughts start coming up. So at one hand, you're trying to mind your child by making him do what you're supposed to be doing. But at the other hand, your mind is going into this loop of telling you all these things that you should not be doing or should be doing, or telling you that you're a bad parent, all of these things. If that is happening to you, all I want to say is, welcome to being human. It happens to all of us, right? Whenever we have to make a decision or take action for something that we care so much about, this is what comes up, right? It just comes up. It tells us you're not good enough. You are not doing the right things. You are not, yes? And why does that happen? Because it's the mind's job. Our mind has been created to protect us from harm. whether there is real harm or perceived harm, right? Sometimes, a lot of times there is perceived harm, and sometimes there is real harm, and our mind is wired to stop us from getting into trouble. So that is why it tells us, it cautions us, it stops us, right? Now, when we went in the earlier experience, when we were looking at your time where you didn't have a good experience, where we were looking at your dark experience in your mind with your parents, and when you visited that with everything that you were feeling, even for a moment, would it be nice to shift out of that and think about, is there another thing that I can do? Is there another way that I can take? And I'm sure when the whole episode is over, we sit down and we think about that, right? And that's what we want to learn through ACT. That's something, there are some things in ACT which might help you with that, okay? So our mind is working 24/7, even when we are sleeping, it's sending us some messages and signals. And that's its job. So it's okay, let it do its job, okay? Our mind gives us all these thoughts and feelings, and when we have to implement what we have learned, they come and interfere. These are the thoughts and feelings and judgments that interfere when we are trying to do something that we have learned, or when we are put in a situation where our mind goes into overdrive and it's telling us a variety of different things to do, right? Another thing, we always are asked to be present, stay in the now, let's just be present. Meditation, all of these things that are really very, very good and very, very scientific, and they do work. But when we first begin to do them, are we able to stay in the now? Even for very, very practiced people who are very professional at doing this, even they many times have trouble. You know, you ask me to sit down for 5 minutes and be present, it's hard. It's not always easy to do that, because what happens? My mind comes in the way. Mr. Mind is always there. It comes in the way. It tells me, oh, but you know, there's something to do, that I didn't do this well enough. I should have finished this by now. Why am I not doing this yet? Or I'm not doing a good job of this. Today for this presentation, my mind has been at work since the last 24 hours. It's telling me, what if you don't know how to use Zoom? What if you don't know how to, what if your mic doesn't work? What if you forget what you have to do with the slides? And of course it happened, I lost one slide, right? So we become busy minding our mind when we're supposed to be in the present moment. We're just with our mind, and we're not able to be here in the present moment, right? And again, that happens to all of us. So welcome to being human. That's who we are. That is how we are, and that is who we are, and that's how we are wired. And it's okay, right? We can learn, we will learn, but it's okay. Mindfulness is something that is talked about a lot. For our people like us who have, most of us here are Indians who have been from the Eastern culture, who have seen and heard a lot about meditation, mindfulness, you know, all of these. It's not a new concept for you, right? What do we mean when we say mindfulness? We mean a compassionate, rich, and a non-defensive awareness of the present moment. When we're being mindful, doesn't mean you need to sit in a meditation in a closed room for 1 hour and that's being mindful. Mindfulness happens all through the day, every action that you're taking. As long as you can remember to be compassionate to yourself and treat yourself in a non-defensive way in the present moment, right? Be here, be kind to yourself. That is mindfulness. Mindfulness is one of the strategies we use in ACT, and the other strategy is acceptance. Right? I would like you to take a moment to read this poem that is on the screen. This is what I found as I was reading something on Fred Rogers. Fred Rogers used to be there used to be a show called Mr. Rogers on American TV many years ago. Really must have been sometime when we were kids, that many years ago. But I just heard of it now, and I was reading it, and I thought this was so beautiful, because if we are able to accept our children the way they are, and that's what he's saying, I just like every part of you. It's not your toys, it's not what you come with, it's what you are is what I want, right? That's the message here. And if we're mindfully aware of everything that is around us with our children and with ourselves, and if we are able to accept that, then that makes our journey much easier, right? So that's the part of acceptance that I would like you to think of, right? Within ACT, while practicing ACT, it helps you notice our thoughts and feelings, right? What are thoughts? They're just like, if imagine that you're sitting under a tree during the weather, during autumn. You know, the wind is blowing and the leaves are falling, right? So your thought, think of your thought as a leaf, right? One leaf falls, there's your thought, right? It falls and then it flies away, and then there's another, and then there is another, and then there's another. And sometimes they come so fast, they're getting on top of each other, right? That's how our thoughts work. But if you are able to see them only as falling leaves, that they're there, they come and they go. And if we try not to be controlled by those leaves, not to engage in those, it's a thought. Like this morning, I had a thought that my mind was telling me, this presentation, you don't know what you're doing. It's not going to work for you. You're going to make a mess of it. You should be ashamed of yourself for taking up something that for this many people, first time, online, all these thoughts are going into my head, right? I had a choice at that time to make. Am I going to engage myself in this thought and get more and more anxious and actually make this presentation worse? Or I can say, thank you, mind. Thank you for giving me this thought. I hear you. You're there. You can, I hear you. You can stay. I cannot push it out. That's one thing we can never do, is push out these thoughts, because that is just going to make us more tired. The more we think of not thinking about something, the more we think about that, right? So I didn't try that. The only thing, because I practiced some ACT, I was able to say, thank you, mind. I know where the weaknesses are. I know what I need to do. I'm going to make a list. I'm going to make sure I have my notes ready and my presentation is ready. Video was making me nervous, may or may not work. So I removed video from my presentation and I took some steps to be more successful. Right? But I didn't let my mind control my actions. If we try and do that, and I'm not always successful, I'm telling you this up front. Most of the time I just fail really badly. But if we try, you have to keep trying. If we try to not let our thoughts control us, then we may derive better outcomes, right? So ACT helps you notice your thoughts and feelings without being controlled by them. In simple terms, we can also say accept, choose, and take action. So we've talked about accepting, what accepting means, right? Accepting our thoughts, accepting our situation, not resigning to it, but accepting it, right? Non-judgingly. This is what my mind is telling me right now. Okay, thank you, mind. I listen. I've heard you. Now you can stay quiet, right? And then we can choose what to do, right? Okay. What do we need to choose? In parenting, when we're looking at parenting, we want to identify the things that matter to us most as a parent. What is the most important thing as a parent? And then in my mind, I can live it out. I can look and visualize what does that look like. What is most important to me as a parent? My child's health. If that's something that is most important to me, then I have to think in my head, what does that look like? My relationship with my family in terms with their health, what does that look like? My values as a parent in terms of my child's health, what does that look like? If I can see it, then I will be able to stop and think of what kind of parent do I want to be in terms of that particular value that I have for my child. And there are a few things, of course, that matter to us, that will have most value, right? That will be the most important to us as parents. It takes some mindfulness, some thinking, some sitting down and maybe sometimes writing down notes or talking to your the second parent in the house or anybody else who is also involved with you in the parenting about what is it that you're that matters most to you as a parent, right? Take that time, think of what that is, right? Make that choice. And while you're making that choice, and while I'm saying all this to you, what is your mind doing? Is Mr. Mind back? Are half of you or more than 90% of you thinking, yeah, it's okay for you to sit there and tell us all this, but I have to go and cook my dinner now. I have to make sure the children have a bath before they go to bed. I have to make sure the groceries are in. I have to sanitize everything that comes from outside. I have. You don't know my situation. These are the things that are already there, right? Mr. Mind is at its work. Your mind is telling you, oh, you're sitting here, but what about dinner? You didn't soak the chana that you were supposed to soak to make chole today, and now you're sitting here, right? So thank you, mind. Thank you, mind, and welcome to being human again. We're all there. But if we can learn to just say thank you, mind, and focus on what we're talking about right now, what matters to you most. And although your mind says this is not going to work, this is all this new age stuff, they tell you all these things, but it's easy for them to say, they don't know. When it comes to real life, it's very different. Yes, I agree with you. 99% of the time, that's what it is. But yet, if there is that 1% possibility, are you willing to give it a try? Are you willing to give it that effort which it takes in order to be the parent you want to be? In being the parent we want to be, there's going to be a lot of struggle. Nobody said parenthood is easy. Remember, our heart is walking outside our body all the time. So how can that be easy? It's not easy for us. But this is something I read recently. There is as much life and richness in a moment of suffering as there is in a moment of joy. Right? Suffering is rich. Suffering is uncomfortable, but it's rich. That is where growth occurs. If you look back to the experiences of your life, the most growth for you as a person may have occurred during the most difficult periods of your life. That is where growth occurs. And again, discomfort and suffering is a reality. It's never going to go away. The more we learn how to accept it and not let it rule our lives, but find what we need to do and find the direction that we choose ourselves, for ourselves, then we can move forward. So again, something to think about. I have another exercise that we can do, which I would like you to relate to in your mind again. Think of it. You're going with your family on a cruise, and you get shipwrecked. Right? You and your is broken. There's no way for you to go back. You have to live on that island. God alone knows for how long. The first thing you will look out for is safety, right? For your family. How do I find a safe place? Are there any predators? Are there any dangers? Then second thing you look for is maybe food. Make sure there's food for. How are we going to find food? How are we going to find shelter? If there's a storm, if there is an animal, if there is a tribe, you're just thinking immediately of all your problem solving, right? To be safe, to be fed, to be sheltered. Now compare that to our lives every day. That's what we're involved in doing every day, right? Making sure the food is on the table, making sure our children are clean, they're going to school, they're doing this, they're doing this, they're doing this. And our mind is constantly on that wheel doing all of this. At the same time, going back to our island, what is it that we really want? If you're stuck on an island, you might keep doing this problem solving every day and making sure that you're getting everything comfortable for your family every day. And over time, you might forget that there is a world out there. You need to get back. That is the whole idea. That is the bigger problem. That is the bigger value. That is what matters most, right? Yes, of course, the food matters and the shelter matters and the comfort matters and the dangers, keeping safe matters. But what really matters most is getting back to where you needed to be. Right? The same way, if we look at our lives, there are things that we're doing every day, but there are things that matter more, that are more important to us. There's somewhere we want to, in some direction that we want to go towards, right? And sometimes in this everyday race, we may have forgotten where we need to get to or which direction we are going in, right? We may not know the destination. None of us know the destination, but we know the direction. We can identify the direction. And sometimes we just have to slow down, let our mind slow down, and find that direction. Find where we want to go, right? Find what matters to us most as a person, as a parent, as a family. What is it that's most important to you, right? This is what I was talking about. We have lost the plot, right? And what happens is when we lose the plot, and when this happens often, when it keeps happening, every day we're losing the plot. Oh no, the child made a mess. Oh no, he had a tantrum. Oh no, he failed in school. Oh no, I forgot to order groceries. When every day we're losing the plot and just trying to fix the plot, we kind of lose our sight on the long-term goal, right? We lose our sight on what matters most. And every day becomes a struggle to just meet your immediate goal. Let me just solve this, forget about everything else right now, right? Is that the best way for us to go forward? That's something again to think about. I don't have the answers. I'm not going to be able to give you any solutions here. I'm only sharing with you some things that we can all think about when we're done with this for ourselves and for our families, right? Within ACT, the things that we care about most, we call them values, right? So what we value most. In another example, and I'm sure most of us who have children have been through this, is when your child learns to ride a bike or go skating or rollerblades, we have to put some safety equipment on them, right? So that's because what we care about most is our child's safety. We want him to be safe, so we take him downstairs with the bike and the helmet. There are 5 other children and 4 other moms downstairs, and it's really hot, and your child says, I don't want to wear the helmet, mom, it's too hot. And look, 3 of my friends are not wearing their helmets, and they laugh at me when I wear this helmet, and I don't like to wear it, and you're making me look like an idiot. And really, and there's other mothers standing over there and smiling and smirking at you and thinking, oh my God, what do you think? Your child is so precious. We don't send our child with a helmet. But you know, for yourself, what matters to you most is your child's health or the child's safety. Now, at this point, Mr. Mind will be back again telling you, oh my God, look at you. You're so old-fashioned. You're so strict. You're not even listening to him. And then another part of your mind is saying, no, but he has to be safe. No, but you want this. Yeah? This is what happens all the time in all the decisions we make as a parent, literally every day. Starting from what will I cook today, right? Oh, I can make this fried chicken, but then it's not healthy. I want my children to be healthy, but I also want them to have fun. It's constant. That's what wears us down so much, right? So if we are able to identify what we care about most, then we will be able to make our decisions we will take action based on those things that we value most, right? We will be able to have a little bit more clarity. It's never simple, it's never going to be straightforward, but we will have a little more clarity, and we will have less guilt for taking that decision. No, you're going to wear your helmet because your safety is more important to me than what other people think of me. It will help us to come to that decision faster without our mind hammering us more, right? So if we are able to find what we value, what we care about most, we will be able to take those actions faster, and maybe be less tormented by our mind. Okay. So values are a chosen purpose, something we choose for ourselves. Each person, each individual has their own values. For each one of you, what matters to you most is your own, right? And then we take actions that are guided by what you most care about, by your values. So every day when you take a decision, when you take an action, if we are taking an action that is taking you in the direction of your value, you will have less friction, less argument in your mind, right? You will feel less stressed, less anxious, less vulnerable in your mind, because you're taking an action that you know you have identified and chosen that you care most about. We talk about valuing, as a verb, not so much as a noun. So it's an action. When we are valuing, we are taking action. We are not just saying I value this. We are actually deciding to take an action. So that's the difference between valuing and, I don't know why this. Right. Another important thing to remember about values is that value is different from a goal. A goal is something you can achieve. A value is only a direction. Something that matters to you most is not going to stop mattering at any point of time in your life, right? If your child's health, child safety, your child's education, your child's independence, your child's medical condition, whatever it is that matters to you most, it's not going to stop mattering ever. Because we're parents, remember, we signed up for life. So it will continue. It's only it's not a destination. It's not somewhere where we can go and say, okay, now that's it. I have achieved my child's health value and that's it, no more. No, that's never going to happen, right? So we need to remember that. It's similar to the comparison here is, if I say I'm traveling north, north never stops being north. I will have to keep going, and north is just a direction that I'm taking, versus I'm going to Ras Al Khaimah. I know that I have reached Ras Al Khaimah and my goal is achieved. Right? A value is not a goal. That's the difference that we need to understand in that. Okay? So choosing to live in a way that is consistent with what is most important to you. This is what identifying your values will help you do. It will help you choose. What has happened over time, over years, is that we have lost touch with what is most important to us, because there is so much external influence, so many things we are hearing, people are telling us. There is media, there's internet, there's Wi-Fi, there's colleagues and friends and husband and wife and children and neighbors, and we're just taking in all of that, and within all of that maze, we have forgotten what is important to us in our relationship with our child, in our relationship with our family. What is it that matters most? And this might be a good time, if you choose to think about that. When we think about that, we will feel open to many other feelings which may not feel good, right? We call that vulnerability, a quality or a state of being exposed, right? And when do we feel vulnerable? When do we feel vulnerable? We will feel vulnerable only when something that matters to you is at stake, right? The more anything matters to you, the more vulnerable and uncomfortable you feel pursuing it. If it didn't matter, you wouldn't care. It wouldn't feel anything. But the moment you identify what is so much more important to me, you will feel more vulnerable. One of the ways to find out what is more important to you is also to be able to find out, when do you feel most vulnerable? Right? Because they go hand in hand, they go together. So it's not a comfortable journey to even identify your values. You may go through some feelings and thoughts that may not be very uncomfortable, but it's okay. Sit in the discomfort. It will only help you grow. And if you are feeling very vulnerable when you're thinking of your values, welcome to being human. Because that's what we are. We are all human. We are all going through these judgments, these thoughts, these feelings, these vulnerabilities, these insecurities. If we were able to open up everybody's head and show it like a screen, they would all have the same words on them. This is what all of us think. This is what all of us feel. And then the social media doesn't help at all, because that's making it worse, right? So Mr. Mind will always be there. He's back again into our head, climbing in with the ladder and saying, aha, Nipa can tell you whatever. You go back and cook your dinner and put the food on the table and stop thinking about all these fancy things that she's talking about, because you're a mother and you have to do this, and yes, of course you do, but can you give it a little bit of thought and see if you can change the way you act to be in line with what matters to you most, the way you behave with your children, the way you behave at home with your family, just so that you can go towards the direction of what matters to you most, rather than going away from it. Because when you go away from it, you feel pulled. And that pull is what we call suffering. That's the pull, that's suffering, because you're going away. You are doing some things that are taking you away from what you care about most. But we don't even know that, right? And so that's why we end up being in that place. If we are just able to label that, label what we care about most, and label how we feel, we may be able to take steps in that direction. This path is not straight, right? I wish it was easy, but it's not. It's not easy at all, because Mr. Mind's job is to protect you, is to tell you, is to keep you secure, right? That's its job. And so it's going to protect you. It's going to tell you, don't do this. It's not, no, don't go away from the unknown. Do things that you already know, things that you think have worked for you. Just keep on track. Keep doing what you need to do every day, right? But notice one thing. When you do something, think about how it makes you feel. Did it make you feel like you're going away from what you care about? Or did it make you feel like you're going towards what you care about? You always have that choice, right? So consider your next action and your next direction you take. There will always be conflicting values. You want health also, and you want fun also. You want joy also for your children, right? There will be, and there is no right or wrong. And again, welcome to being human. There are no easy choices here. Our heart is walking outside. How can there be an easy choice, right? So if there isn't an easy choice, we still have to make a choice. It's never a right or wrong choice. If you have identified what matters to you, which may change in every moment, right now what matters to me may be different from what matters to me after 2 hours or after 2 years. Yes, in that moment. The bigger picture remains the same, but in that moment, health versus fun, health versus love, things will be different. They will be conflicting, and I will have to make a choice. There isn't an easy formula for that choice. We have to know ourselves, and that's why we have to engage in mindful activity, to stop, to think, to connect with the present. When we're connecting with the present, we're just labeling how we are feeling, what's going on inside. Identify your body. Label, your body will tell you your heart rate, your sweating of the palms, how fast you're talking, how fast you're breathing. Are you calm or not? That's what will tell you. So that is why the mindfulness part is really important for us to be able to learn from our bodies, learn from our thoughts, and learn to be able to stop for a second so that we get a time to choose. Which way do I want to go now? Do I want to put on the helmet, or do I not want to put on the helmet? Do I need to scream right now because my son brought a glass of water for me and tripped and the whole glass of water fell on the laptop? Because that's my immediate reaction. He's ruined my laptop, and that is, so many millions of thoughts quickly come into your mind. And immediately we turn around and we scream and we become angry. But if I'm able to contact the present moment for a millisecond and look at the bigger picture, he's bringing me water because he knows I've been talking for an hour and I might be thirsty. We miss that because we don't stop, right? And in that case, what was more important? But it's okay, because this happens to us. We can only learn from every day, every second. So welcome to being human again, because it's happening to all of us. So I finally want to say is, from what we have seen today, there's a lot more ACT. I mean, I've been reading about ACT and trying to learn ACT for the last 8 years, and I haven't even scratched the surface. So there's a lot. But from my experience, I can say that it has been very, very enriching, very, very supportive to me in many times of my life where it has been dark. And how do we go about it? The first thing, we accept our mind, accept that it's there and it's going to judge us and tell us things. Then we choose our values, we think about what matters to us most, and then we take action based on what matters to us most. Seems very simple, but it's not. Right? But it can be done. It just takes practice. Mindful practice, aware practice. I want this and do it every day. 2 minutes a day. Even if you can begin with 2 minutes a day, that will help. Just pause, connect to the present moment, take a deep breath, and go back to number one again. Whenever you find that this is not working, stop again. Because we're all human and it will not work. It will not work more than it works. But even if it works once in a day, that's a great beginning. Right? I would like to thank my mentors who have led me here. Dr. Siri Ming and Ashling Curtin are the two people who have taught me ACT. And this entire presentation was based from the book called Joy of Parenting by Lisa Coyne and Amy Nero. And if you are interested in reading more about ACT, this is the website for it. I will send it to Mohanji and Meetaji so that they can share it with everyone. Thank you very much. And namaste.
Thank you, Nipa ji. It was a very interesting journey of connecting between mind and human values and how we really have to behave in different situations. I think now we will take up one or two questions which are there. In one of the parent was asking whether we should consider our mind as a third person. Yes. And converse with it as a separate entity.
Yes, that's a very good question, Mr. Vijay. Yes, that is exactly what we do. Is we consider our mind as mind is not us. That's not me. Mind is a separate entity inside my head, telling me what to do, judging me, guiding me, protecting me, all of that. And if we are able to separate ourselves from our mind, from our, we call it, you can call it the mind or the thoughts or, you know, whoever, your conscious, some people call it the conscious that tells us things. Yes, if we can separate that, then that would be very, very useful. Yes, so that is what we consider it as a third, you know, like, and a lot of our Eastern philosophy talks about that, right? As being outside, that outside experience, as being the third person. That's what it is, yes.
Meetaji, you have any questions directly on WhatsApp to you?
Hey Mohanji, I do have a question, but it's slightly different from this topic. Should we put it up?
Maybe we can try, and if Nipaji can help us or guide us the way how we have to proceed further.
Right.
You can go ahead with the question.
It's a question from a parent who wants to know, should they have a talk with their child who is a person of determination that he or she is different from others? And if they have to have this talk, what is the right age? And in what way should they approach this topic?
So, I mean, there are different, there isn't, again, like I've said earlier, there isn't a right or wrong, right? There isn't a right or wrong answer to this. The one thing, if it was, if I was going to make this decision, there are a few things I would consider. First thing would be the intellectual ability of that child, the cognitive ability. Does the child actually understand what you're trying to explain? Like, is it going to make sense to the child? What is different, right? So does that child have enough language for them to understand this? If yes, then I think it's the person's right to know. You know, they should, like, if it is like any other diagnosis that I have, if you do my blood test and I have diabetes, it's my right to know that I have it. The same way, if this is, yeah. But again, secondly would be age. How old is the child? And what are your reasons why you're thinking of this right now? what are those reasons motivated by, right? Is it because other people are teasing him? Is it because you want him to know so that he can accept himself better? Is it because you want to maybe give this to the school so that he can get some accommodations? What are your reasons? Because that's also very important to know. And if those reasons are guided by what matters to you, as we just talked about, then yes, it should matter to you. It should be important to you as a parent, to the child himself, right? And to your family as a whole. And if that's the case, then yes.
Thank you. Thank you for that, sir.
Yeah.
The next question, Mitaji.
That again is a general question. It's been raised by a person who comes in contact with lots of parents and people of determination, and they want to find out as to how to encourage parents to treat their child as an adult as they're growing up and stop treating them like babies, because they're used to doing so many things for them over a period. So how do they make that shift in their thought process and start treating the person as an adult?
So one thing that I've been learning about in the last few years is taking the perspective of the other person, right? So if you're an educator, if this question is from an educator, put yourself in the parent's shoes, right? The parent has been used to doing some things. That is how the parent doesn't know any different. Maybe that parent does not have another child, does not meet other two people who are at the same age of her own child, who are typically developing. So maybe she doesn't know. So if that is the case, then talking to the parent with compassion, coming to it from a point of, I want to help you to make this socially valid for your family, rather than coming to it from blame or from fault. So it's really important on how we speak with parents and what our reasons are for speaking with parents, right? So if we feel that the child is being mollycoddled a lot and it needs to be more independent, we can approach it with a positive tone by saying, let's look at the independence, and then break those steps down in really small parts, something that a parent can achieve and feel successful with. Like you suggest a very small step, and if they're successful, they will come back and want more. But if you suggest something very big, like, he should take the bus and come to school on his own when he's not even, getting out once, then that's something like parent is going to say, well, that's not going to happen, right? So that can be your goal in your mind, but you want to take very small steps to begin with, and then support the parents in doing that.
Thank you, Nipaji. That was a very practical advice. Most of us can put it to use.
Yeah.
Well, I think we don't have any more questions coming up. And Nipaji, I would request, please stay on. And I think probably it is important for me, before we do the formal vote of thanks, I would like to introduce few of our founding members who are coincidentally here with us.
Sure.
Is one, Rekha. Thank you very much for joining. Then Gulshan from India. Thank you, Gulshan, for joining us. Can you wave at us, please?
I don't see her. Wait a second.
Yeah. All right.
I'm not able
Then
to see.
I've not put my video on, but thank you, Mohan, and thank you, Nipa.
Thank you.
Hi, Gulshan. Good to see you.
Hi.
Yeah. And we have Sajita and Vaishnavi joining from India, who are the executive committee members. And also, I think a couple of new parents are there. It is important for me to introduce the other members who are here on the screen. Is Mitaji, who is our pillar. Then we have Kusumji. Then we have Sujata. Then we have Ambiji. We have Shivananda. And we have young volunteers who are part of this mission since last couple of years. And I'm sure I request all parents to stay online even after the vote of thanks, to see the wonderful movie, what is being made by the contribution of all the children and parents' efforts put together. Now I request our youth volunteer Anjali to present the vote of thanks.
Respected committee members, Ms. Nipa Bhuptani, all ladies and gentlemen, it's my privilege to propose a vote of thanks on the 5th day of this event. I, on behalf of the Prerana team and families, extend a hearty vote of thanks to our speaker and presenter, Ms. Nipa Bhuptani, for gracing this event. We are grateful to you for giving an excellent coverage on the topic of acceptance and commitment therapy and the importance of identifying values and being vulnerable. Thank you, Ji, for a highly informative and thought-provoking presentation. You provided a number of ideas on the topic for our parents to try at home, such as accept, choosing our values, and to then take action. Thank you for sharing and clarifying on various issues, and we hope to have more such interactive sessions with you in the future. We thank everyone who registered and are here today with us this evening. Special thanks to the team working behind the scene to make it a successful event. It was a great pleasure. Thank you very much and looking forward to seeing you all again tomorrow for our next session.